Well, hello, good people. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to another edition of Two for Tuesday Grief and Motivation Talk with me, Kanisha Nichelle. So, as you may have seen, I have been sharing over the last 24 hours how special today's episode was going to be. Today is the last Tuesday of October, which is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and I wanted to take the time to have a very intimate and personal conversation about breast cancer as it relates to someone who is living as a result of someone in their family that has had it. I had shared yesterday that 1 in 8 U.S. women will be diagnosed with breast cancer. So that means that a daughter, a mother, a sister will all have ramifications of that person being diagnosed. And so today, for a very special and intimate conversation, we're going to talk about when breast cancer runs in your bloodline. All right. So I want to thank you so much for being here. Before we dive into today's topic, if you are joining me for the first time, welcome. I hope this is not your last, but every Tuesday we connect here, and this is just an opportunity to just to talk about how grief has shown up in our lives. And I share 2 tips that you can apply through your grief journey as well as in everyday life. And so I always start with an inspirational moment, but before we get to that point, I have a few announcements to share. So one, if you are a Christian believer and you are going through this grieving season, and of course you're looking at it like, I know God and I know He's real and I love God and I know that my loved one is in heaven, but I am also struggling with my faith in this moment, I encourage you to hop over to Facebook and to join my Facebook group, Grieving Christians, okay? So I started this Facebook group a couple of weeks ago off of the sheer notion that so many people were wanting a space where they could continue to speak on God and share their thoughts and prayers and share scriptures, and to be able to commune with other people that even though in this season, my faith has wavered, I still believe. And so Grieving Christians is a Facebook group where, on Mondays we're doing a prayer call, all kind of scriptures happening. You're still able to share what's going on with you. You can ask for prayer, especially at night. That's when grief tends to be the toughest. And so all of this together we are doing over in the Facebook group. So if you would love to join us, just click the link in my bio and sign up there. And if you're watching this replay on YouTube, you can also go to my website, which is kanishanichelle.com, and click to join. Second announcement is, hey, listen, if you're enjoying all of this good information and you want more, then I would encourage you to sign up for my mailing list. A lot happens in the mailing list. I get to share more stories, give more tips. For example, yesterday's email that went out, we talked about grieving at night and why, the nighttime when it's dark out and we're by ourselves seems to be the toughest time. So a lot of information goes down in the emails, not in the DMs, but in the emails. And so I would encourage you to sign up for my mailing list. So you can get on that as well by clicking the link in my bio. Or again, there is a link on my website where you can join as well. All right? So that's all the announcements that I have for today. So we're going to go into the inspirational moment. And again, if you're joining me for the first time, I always do a inspirational moment from my book, Prayers of Strength and Healing. This was one of the books that I received after the loss of my mom, and it helped me. It helped me a lot. And so I always share, just a bit of scripture, and then we talk about how we can apply this scripture or this prayer to our lives. So today being October 27th, it says, "For this cause we also, since the day we heard it, do not cease to pray for you, and to desire that ye might be filled with the knowledge of his will in all wisdom and spiritual understanding, that ye may walk worthy of the Lord until all pleasing, being fruitful in every good work and increasing in the knowledge of God." And this comes from Colossians 1:9 and 10. And so when I read this, it took me a moment to actually dissect it because it's a lot of these and thous. And so I grabbed my phone and went to the NIV version. And so that helped me with a little bit of the translation and understanding. And so what this is saying is that even though, what we may be going through, what we may be seeing in life seems insurmountable at the moment, we have to continue to pray and ask God to impart his understanding and his wisdom onto us. Because if I've said this, before, that if we just tend to look at what's going on with our natural eye and that's all that we see, then we can be discouraged. And we can look at that thing and say, how in the world am I going to get out of this? When is it going to change? How am I going to do something different? But we have to remember that we serve a God that has blessed us before. That if we can recall back all the other situations that we've said, Lord, if you get us out of this, I won't do it again. If we can recall those moments, or, when we were struggling in our finances and didn't know how we were going to pay our bills. If we had a health situation, any other moment in time that we have had to trust and rely on God and he's brought us out, then we've got to remember that he's going to do that again. And the way that happens is how we continue to pray without ceasing. That's also a verse in the Bible that we have to continue to pray day and night, and even praying is not, it's not being structured in a way. You don't have to always be down on our knees and praying and being postured. We can walk and be in our cars and driving down the road and say, Lord, I need you. That's a prayer. You're speaking to the Father with an open heart, saying that, in this moment, in this thing that I'm going through, I need you. It could be as simple as looking for a parking space. Lord, I need a parking space to open up, and somehow that happens. Even very small things like that, we can call forth the need of God. And so in this scripture, this is exactly what it was saying to me, was that no matter what we've gone through, that, do not cease to pray, and that the desires of his knowledge will be filled unto you, that you may walk worthy of the Lord until all pleasing, being fruitful in every good work. And so as long as we continue to seek God's face, trusting and believe that he's got our back, and that, he's never going to let anything happen to us that's outside of his will, then we know that we serve a God who is going to do it again, and again. Okay? So that was today's inspirational moment. Like I said, for every 2 for Tuesday, I take one inspirational moment and then we transition. And so normally this is the point where we would transition into 2 for Tuesday grief and motivation talk points, where I would give 2 tips on how to navigate this grief journey in everyday life. But I wanted to take this time to have a special conversation about breast cancer and Breast Cancer Awareness Month. I had just reposted in my stories before I started this not too long ago, where this kind of came from. And if or if you're an 80s and 90s baby like myself, then Ananda Lewis. She used to be on MTV. And so she made a post about the fact that she now has breast cancer, but she's the daughter of her mother who has had breast cancer. And so, she went through life being scared if she was going to be next. And I wanted to have this conversation. It triggered me because that's been how I've lived. So for the last 13 years, I've always had that thought, am I next? Could this be me? My mother was diagnosed with breast cancer at 41. She died at 44. And so it came, she didn't have early detection. She was diagnosed at stage 3. She decided to have a lumpectomy, which was just to remove the tumor, and not to have a mastectomy, which is to remove the whole breast. She underwent chemo, radiation for several rounds, and then she went into remission. And then it came back. And then she did that whole process all over again. And then it went into remission. And then it came back. But only the third time when it came back, it actually traveled and metastasized to her brain, which turned into a brain tumor. And so she did treatment for that. She did a laser surgery to try to get that removed, which they said that they had gotten it. I personally believe they didn't get all of it, but I'm not a doctor. So she had that surgery, and then it metastasized again to her lungs, to which at that point it was pretty much widespread throughout her body. it became uncontrollable. We attempted to do a lung surgery to have it removed, but the surgery was unsuccessful. And probably about a week after that surgery is when my mother passed in 2007. And so that journey alone has been tough. But to also know that my grandmother, my paternal grandmother, had breast cancer, and my father's sister, which would be my grandmother's daughter, also had breast cancer. So in my immediate family, in my bloodline, there are 3 cases of which one, my mother, succumbed to it. And so over the last 13 years, that's all, it's what you think about. It's not an everyday thing. Sorry for the cars. It's not an everyday thing that I think about it, like, am I gonna get it? Am I gonna get it? No. But it is something that's in the back of my mind. I know about all of the medical testings that you can get to see if you have that gene. But there's part of you that wonders, do you want to know? And so that's why I can say I've personally never had the gene tested, because I don't know if I want to know. And so I'm saying all of this to give you the backstory as to the reason why I wanted to have this conversation, because there are other peoples just like myself who have breast cancer in your bloodline, and you wonder, could I be next? My sister had it, and could I be next? My grandmother, could I? My mother, could I? And so I just wanted to open up this dialogue, because I know I'm not the only person who thinks like this. Like I said, for the last 13 years, it's been, am I okay? I'm always checking, did I feel something? Is there something there? And there's a certain level of fear that comes over you when you know that it's in your bloodline. And so I just posted this morning that fear, as an acronym, is false evidence appearing real. These are the thoughts that come into our mind as to, could I, may I don't know, should I do this, should I do that? Some years back, Angelina Jolie, she did the testing. She found out that she did carry the trait, and she decided to have a double mastectomy, removing both of her breasts, in hopes to stop that from happening to her. She wanted to catch it beforehand. But like I said, it's something that I have chosen not to do at this point. Maybe I'll change my mind later, I don't know. But for right now, I personally have not gone and had that testing. And so I just wanted to have this conversation, because I think it's really important that it's okay to have a certain level of concern, but we also don't want to live our lives in complete fear. Because I also believe that we can attract things that we don't want. I'm going to say that again. We have the ability, if we think long enough on something, or if we continue to think on something, if we continue to speak certain things, we have a way of attracting those things into our lives. And so I don't know if you saw the comments on any of my posts, talking about today's topic, but I almost believe that I brought in a scare into my life in 2018. So it was around April of 2018, and I always, just check because I'm supposed to. And of course, like I said, because it runs in my bloodline, I check more often, more frequently. And so I did a check as normal, and there was a mass there. And I thought I was like losing it a little bit, because I'm like, I've never felt anything before. Why am I feeling something now? And so I gave it a day, I felt it, and I said, okay, well, nah, it's gonna go away. It's gonna go away. And so I gave it a day, and then I didn't worry about it. And then I came back another day, the next day, and I checked for it, and it was still there. And I was like, okay, what do I do now? So then I asked my husband, I said, babe, give me 2 of your fingers. Can you feel this? And he rubbed it, and I watched his face, because I think I can, tell facial expressions, and his eyes got big. And I was like, okay, so I'm not losing it. There is something there. And I was like, okay, now what? So at the time, I had a OB, and so I made an appointment. And I have a cousin who I'm really, really close with, which I affectionately call my sister. And so I text her and I told her, and I told my aunt. At this time we were living in Georgia, so I told my aunt in Georgia, this is what has happened. And so I went ahead and made the doctor's appointment, and I went to my regular OB and got to the appointment, and he felt, and he said, yeah, there's something there. And I'm like, okay, all right, here we go. And so at that point, it's nothing that he could do. That's not his area of expertise. Of course, he's a regular just OBGYN. And so he said, okay, well, I'll go ahead and put in a script for a mammogram. So this was my very first time ever having a script, an appointment for a mammogram. And so, just thinking about it and the days to come, I'm like, okay, I've never had one. Of course, you're all over Google trying to see what it's like. You've heard stories, you've heard horror stories about what it feels like. And so I'm like, okay, well, you know what? I've got to do it. We've already determined that there's something there and we need to go get it looked at. So this is the first step. So had the appointment, my husband came, my sister flew in from out of town to be there as a support. And my aunt was also there as well. And so I had the mammogram, and it's not on the table, it's kind of standing. And so just like they say, they press your breast down and you gotta move and the arms all up and it's all uncomfortable and all this kind of stuff. And so I went through that, and then from there, they kind of make you wait. It's very comfortable, I would say. It was a very comfortable atmosphere. It was very comfortable. They gave you a nice warm robe, and they had music playing. It was almost like you had a spa, but I'm like, this is not the spa. So I will say, if you've never had one before, at least where I went in Georgia, in Atlanta, it was very comfortable. And so, of course, because your mind is in a space, when it's time to have these done, your mind is all in these spaces. So I would encourage you to, if you haven't had one, to do your research and seek out a place that offers these kind of amenities, if you will, when it comes time for that procedure. But it was nice, it was comfortable. So I went, had everything done. They did both just to check for symmetry, of course. But obviously I was more concerned with, it was my right side, so I was more concerned with that one. And so it was over with. You get dressed. No, you don't get dressed. Then you go into another examining room, and you have an ultrasound done, because especially if you're coming in there and it's already, another physician has already said, there was something there, then they do an ultrasound to take a second look, if you will, in the moment. And so I had an ultrasound done. Now, this is the part that's going to threw me off. But I had the ultrasound, and literally, just like if you're having a baby, you have the ultrasound, you have the monitor, and you can see. And the doctor, she's just rubbed around, and she's like, oh, it's just a cyst. Now, she said it very, very calmly, very just matter of fact. But to me, I didn't know that. I didn't know. Now, it was a very large cyst. It was probably the size of an acorn that was there. So me at home, me feeling, my husband feeling, my OB feeling, you don't know what's underneath until you get, to the testing and all of that stuff. So that's how your mind plays tricks on you. And so the time leading from my husband feeling, me finding, my husband checking, me going to the OB, getting the mammogram and being on the ultrasound table was probably a 2-week span that my mind just thought everything imaginable. That this is it, here it is, I knew it. It was only a matter of time. See, I knew if my mama got it, then I'd go get it. Like, you cannot imagine all the things that go through your mind in those moments. But to get from day one to get to the ultrasound and for the doctor to say, oh, it's just a cyst, it'll go away. It's a lot to deal with. It's a lot of pressure. You try to hold it in. You try to, not think about it. And this could be anybody who has actually had a positive diagnosis, that you try not to think about it. You try to position your mind onto other things, but it's not easy. And that 2 weeks was very tough. I was actually in the middle of planning an event for my nonprofit, and I couldn't focus because it's like all I can think about is, what's going to happen when I go get the mammogram. And so I just wanted to have this conversation with you because I want you to know that you're not alone. Especially if this is in your bloodline, your immediate family bloodline. Those are the traces that it's more prevalent. Sometimes it can skip a generation. That's another thing that I think about. I have a daughter. So it's like if my mom has it, does it skip me and go to my daughter? Like your mind just thinks all of these different things. But we can't live in fear. We absolutely positively cannot live our life in fear because I do believe that those are the things that you attract. Now, we want to be cautious. We want to be cognizant. We want to be aware. We want to get those testings. I am supposed to get testing early because of my bloodline. The 40 is the normal age that you're supposed to start. I was supposed to start at 30. I chose not to, but I had to go at 31, 32 when this happened. And so, all of this together just lets you know that even though this may be in your bloodline, you don't want to live in fear, okay? So I just wanted to have this conversation because I felt that it was really important for you to hear from someone who has been exactly where you are, who is living that same life, that even though it may run in your bloodline, we don't have to let it, consume us. If you're wondering, yes, this is my dear mother on my shirt. I miss her dearly. She passed at 44. And so that'll be another conversation that I have. I look at my life that I have 10 years until her angel anniversary or her angel age. And my dad was 38. So I got 4 years to live, before I reach when my father was 38 when he passed. And so that's another thing, a part of grief that we have to be concerned about. Worrying about, am I going to surpass them? Am I going to live longer than them? Or is there this black cloud that hangs over me that, well, if they didn't make it past 38, will I make it past 38? Now, I've said I'm not going to celebrate my 38th birthday. I'm going to celebrate my 39th because I surpassed my father. And then, let me live to see 45. I'm going to have the party of all parties, okay? Let me tell you right now. Because to be able to be in this earth and to, outlive my folks is going to be a party. But that'll be a conversation for another day of how we, process what that type of fear looks like. But for today, I wanted to have this conversation about breast cancer running in your bloodline, especially if it was your mother, your grandmother, maternal grandmother for sure, but paternal as well. And then if you are a sister, so if you have a sibling that has had it, does that make you susceptible as well? So I hope that this has helped in some sort of way. I hope this has been encouraging just to know that you're not alone, that even though it may run in your bloodline, that we don't have to allow the fear of it to rob us of a good life. Now we do have to do what we have to do to take care of ourselves. Make sure that we are making our doctor's appointments. Make sure we're checking on our own and we're checking often. If we do feel something that feels out of place, that we are getting tested early, because early detection is one of the biggest ways that we can take care of this and make sure that we can live a long, healthy life. The recovery rate for early detection is extremely high versus someone who, doesn't catch it early, like my mother. She, had stage 3. And so I just wanted to have this conversation to let you know you are not alone at all. Even though I have grieved the loss of my mother and my father, it still plagues me to have these thoughts because I am human. It doesn't mean that because I have gotten through the pain part of grief that I still don't have thoughts, that I still don't wonder what if, that I still don't have questions. All of that is human behaviors and human components. So it doesn't, stop the fact that I have recovered, that I can be in a space to walk with others through this process as a grief coach, but it just means that I'm human. And so I want you to know that this is a very human thing, This is nothing to be afraid of, to be ashamed of, to scold yourself for having these thoughts. But I just want you to know that everything is going to be okay as long as we continue to trust and to believe. All right? I hope that you found this enjoyable. I hope this is not your last time being here. If this was your first, every Tuesday at 12 noon, you can find me right here. And we're talking about how we can get through this grieving season together. All right? I appreciate you guys. I want you to have a wonderful week. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot me a DM. I would love to talk with you. Other than that, enjoy yourself. Enjoy your week. Take care of yourself. Make sure you take care of you. Till then, bye-bye.